keeping score, all the stick and ball sports. But today we have something different. And today we have something that is obviously one of the biggest sports globally, open wheel and NASCAR racing, 20-25% of the trillion-dollar sports industry broadly. Here, across the pond, everywhere, somebody who has risen, he'll tell you about it, but from building a $420 million Daytona Rising project to now the chief operating officer of the International Speedway Corp, Joie Chitwood. Joey, thank you for joining me.
Oh, Rick, what a pleasure. Always happy to talk about motorsports, and I think the interesting thing is people don't know how unique it really is. It's different than what we call stick and ball sports. Our fans travel from major distances to attend events. If you look at just the Daytona 500, 60% of our race day crowd comes from outside the state of Florida. They're traveling over 300 miles to the event, and they're staying 5 nights when they come to our event. That's true economic impact. That's a lot different than what I would call a local sports team that just generates its interest from its hometown. I think that's the uniqueness of our business. And when you think about 36 NASCAR races during the year, it's in essence 36 all-star races across the country. So a little bit of a different component when you think about the hometown baseball team or the hometown football team, but I like the fact that we've got these differentiators for us, and I think it shows really in the bottom line in terms of what people spend on our sport.
And Joie Chitwood, again, the guy that's basically driven the Daytona Rising project, but also now involved in the entire International Speedway world and NASCAR. The motorsports stadium technique, when we were sitting here 3-4 years ago and the idea was let's spend $400 million and do something that nobody else had done before, it was hard to believe that the result is $1.6 billion economic impact. And of all of the numbers, the stadium had to take into account the 7-inch variance in the globe from end to end. I don't know what that means, but it's a big deal, and you're in the middle of that process, so I'm sure you feel really good about that.
We really do. What a huge project for us. And when you think about our company and the legacy of the France family, Big Bill France built this property in 1959 and did something no one thought was possible. Took racing from the beaches, which was very iconic to Daytona Beach, and created the super speedway. And back then, NASCAR was not the most popular form of motorsport in the country. People would have said it might have been second or third on the list. So here we are 50 plus years later, and the goal was, let's live in his footsteps again. Let's do something people don't expect. So this concept of a motorsports stadium was pretty unique. We see all these new stadiums being built, whether it's in Minnesota, Atlanta, you name it. None of them are building a stadium that's 9/10 of a mile long, that has 1% of the annual U.S. output of steel in it, or deals with a 7-inch curvature of the earth from end to end. And we learned a lot through that process because a lot of the designers and concept folks were thinking in a stick and ball world. We kept explaining to them, no, this stadium is a mile long. So for us, great goal. We lived up to it, open to phenomenal results with a photo finish for our Daytona 500 this past year. But more importantly, it resonated with the fans. Everything that we actually had ideas on, took from other stick and ball opportunities, we built into the stadium, and it resonated. Our fans were overwhelmed with a great experience.
In retrospect, Joie Chitwood, after 5 months after the first opening and a year and a half after the first kind of soft opening, it's a microcosm of best practices when you can think about it. You've got 11 of these hospitality areas, you've got the injectors, but it's geared to corporate hospitality, corporate meeting, and business development, which heretofore you don't realize and associate with motorsports. You see it at suite levels of stadiums and arenas, but not here. How has that become such a game changer?
For us, what people don't realize is we have more Fortune 500 companies participating in NASCAR than any other sport. And when you have a CEO of a company here and they want to justify their budget spend to be on the side of a stock car in NASCAR or a partner with the Speedway, you come to Daytona to justify that. And so we had to make sure we had all the right experiential elements for that. The hospitality, the high-end, the club, you name it. Really, if we say that we are the Super Bowl of our sport, the Daytona 500 is our biggest event on the calendar, when you say that, you have to live up to those expectations, especially if partners are spending millions of dollars in that sport. So for us, building new club levels, new suites, premium experiences, all of those things that you expect when you go to big-time sports venues. And yes, we've had a great property for 50 plus years. But after 50 plus years, things need a refresh, and that's what we did. There's another element, too. It's not just that corporate side of it and that experience, but what we found from a consumer side is that people go to social events that include sports. We have to understand that there's a new dynamic in how fans enjoy what they do. They want to congregate, they want to be with people, they want to take photos, they want to post, they want to update their status. We had to provide those opportunities within our stadium as well, not just a great seat to watch a great racing event, but to add all those social elements around us. So those were the two big goals for us. Corporate, premium, making sure we're entertaining that company at the highest level, but from a consumer's perspective, the social element is what we do now, and I'd argue that we go to social events that include music, we go to social events that include racing, we go to social events, and then we include all the other elements with it.
So for an international audience of Reuters, many of whom who are race fans, and some, believe it or not, actually don't know the Chitwood name or you, talk a little bit about your new role and new responsibilities for International Speedway Corp. And how that relates to the bigger picture of NASCAR.
As part of what we do, we have 12 racetracks across the country, all the way from California to upstate to New York to Florida with 2 properties, one in Miami, one here in Daytona. And so for us, we have small tracks, we have big tracks, but we host 20 of the 36 NASCAR Sprint Cup races during the year. And so for us, there's best practice sharing, there's opportunities on the revenue side and how we go to market, but really we have to manage all 12 of those properties as we roll up into ISC, which is a public company. So it's all about our infrastructure, our capital spend, financials, how we report to Wall Street, but really being in the entertainment business and how we capitalize not just on NASCAR, but the chance to use our properties in different ways. One great example is with the Daytona Rising Project, we hosted for the first time in Daytona a country music festival, partnership with AEG. We now have 2 or 3 or 4 other concert festivals planned at some of our other venues. We're now seeing the ability to take our racetracks, if you will, and turn them into entertainment properties. And so as a public company, the need to show growth, opportunities to diversify, those are really big things. So I get to help kind of the company with that guidance strategy across 12 properties, managing those track presidents, making sure that we're pushing ourselves, making sure that we've got good plans for the future, we're spending our capital the right way, and generating that return for our shareholder.
Joie Chitwood, we'll talk about his bio at the end of this interview, but we talked from a thrill-seeking, thrill-riding family. Now he is corporate board speak and mastered it very well, and really excited about that opportunity. But we're getting into the bigger picture. It is only as strong as the sport itself. The core is what we'll talk about, and really, when you think about it, NASCAR is more stable than it's been. First, let's talk about some of the elements. TV, 8-year, Fox, 10-year, NBC. Some people talk about the valleys in TV viewership. What say you about television?
I think there are a number of sports properties out there that would love to have 10-year plus agreements with a Fox and an NBC. That's a huge commitment on them in terms of the success of our sport, and I think we have them as great partners. And NBC coming back on board to take the second half of the season. Fox has been with us for a number of years. Couldn't be more pleased with what they do for our sport. They buy in, they get it, and that's really important for us. And so it takes NASCAR, it takes a title sponsor, it takes broadcasters, it takes racetracks, it takes the drivers, it takes the teams for all of us to grow this sport together. We have an industry action plan. We're all working on the same things, but it all starts with really how we broadcast our sport to the world. And I think everyone is extremely pleased with what Fox has done for us over all the years, and for NBC to come back in the sport. This will be their second year now back. And again, that length of contract, that huge investment, it just shows you that we're a sport that's going to stay here. We're going to continue to grow. And we're in America. How can you not have a sport based on automobiles in America? It's such a core element of being an American. Horsepower, American, NASCAR, those things go together quite well. And again, you add all those Fortune 500 companies on the sides of those cars, I think we're in a really good position moving forward.
And winning doesn't hurt either, and there's one thing that's guaranteed. You may have a few losers, but you're going to have a winner every week, which is a very important bottom line, too. Let's talk attendance. NASCAR doesn't report the numbers since 2012. There's been some discussion about removing seats, which some would say is negative, but obviously there are some advantages to the whole attendance thought. And how do you approach going through a long-term master plan, given where attendance is today?
For us, it's all about the customer experience. And when I mentioned earlier about how far our fans travel, we have to make sure we have a property or a facility that's worth the investment our fan needs to make. It's not just waking up one morning and driving 10 miles to a stadium, buying a ticket, and going to the event. Usually they're flying, they're camping, they're staying in a hotel. So our properties have to justify that investment because of the commitment they're making. And so for us, it's about customer experience, the right kind of venue. But when you look at really the way sports have gone, media is so powerful now. And the ability to sit at home and watch great broadcasts with in-car audio, with all of the camera angles, you name it. It's a little bit of they're a great partner, but there's also a bit of a challenge on TV versus live experience. And so I think it's that balancing act. I will tell you that NASCAR, and I'm sure other sports say this, but NASCAR, when you hear those cars come down, the rumble of those engines for that green flag, that does not translate across the TV screen, but it does in person. And I think that's the part to it. I think we are truly and have been a social event forever. When you look at the camping that we do on property, our fans can stay inside racetracks in their campers. You can't do that at a football stadium. So we're unique in the first place. But for us, 15 was a great year. You looked at our financials and what we reported to Wall Street, we really had a strong year. Good year for everybody in terms of attendance and people at track. Right now, we sold out the Daytona 500 this past year. First time since 2008. So there's some real positive things out there that as we continue to look forward, but we can't stop. Everything's competition. We talk about competition on the racetrack and getting that checkered flag and winning the race, but it's competition for people's time. There's so many entertainment choices, not just in the sports world, but the entertainment world, the family time, you name it. We've got to make sure we've got compelling content, great venues, and a reason to be entertained. And I think that's our focus for our company moving forward. But I am very confident about our plan for our sport, where we're heading with everything. And after this investment in Daytona, we're now starting to look at Phoenix as an opportunity. And following that, we're going to look at Richmond. And so two great properties, great parts of the country. And so the opportunity to see what a capital investment might do there. So that's some analysis we're doing now. But again, we feel like there's a really good future in front of us. And these investments in our properties are going to be key to that.
Let's talk corporate sponsorship. We know that NASCAR has more fan avidity than any sport, very clear. And we also know that there are more category sponsors and sponsorship opportunities from a driver's, a car perspective, as well as the track perspective. Sprint out after this year. How do you make up I know in NASCAR also rumored to be asking $1 billion over 10 years, a lot of money. You going to get it, and what's the deal?
Well, first off, Sprint has been a great partner. And even through the transition when it was Nextel to Sprint, and their investment in our sport has been fantastic. They truly connected with our fans, and that was the key. They understood how to activate the brand. I'm not sure there's as good a position out there for a partner than NASCAR when you think about owning a series, 36 all-star races. Look at the personalities in our sport. You've got Jimmy Johnson, you've got Dale Jr., both with Twitter followings over 1 million. From a social space perspective, you look at the future, it's not just TV, it's social, it's digital. And I think our sport really plays well to that customer. And so I think there's great opportunity there. You look at the interest in the chase. So our 10-race playoff near the end, fantastic results from that. Some very good TV ratings the last couple of years, great finale. So I think there's some real positives. And when you think about a sponsor owning that space, I think the NASCAR properties look pretty good. We appreciate everything Sprint's done. Would have loved to see them stay for a while, but we understand that's cyclical, the nature of the business. But I think we're going to find another good partner to jump in and own it. And I will tell you, the footprint is big and there's great coverage. I think, though, our athletes, to have those athletes support that brand, I think that's going to be phenomenal.
To our significant international Reuters audience, what 5 years from now does the globalization of NASCAR look like? Is it Europe? Is it Asia? Is it the Far East? A combination?
Great question. A lot of people don't realize that NASCAR has a footprint in Mexico and Canada already. We're seeing some great customer fan base from Canada just for the Daytona 500. So in 5 years, I can only imagine the talent. We're seeing great young talent come into our system. But I think it is natural to look overseas, to look how you broaden the footprint. It's probably going to start with the TV package and interest that way and see what other countries are interested. Who knows, as we look on the diverse side, and we saw Daniel Suarez win in Michigan, so one of our Drive for Diversity candidates, who knows if there's a European driver that we might attract to come on over. So I think the future, there's some great options out there. But I think as we continue to dominate America in terms of NASCAR and product, it's natural to kind of grow outside those boundaries. But with Canada and Mexico, a good start. Who knows what the future is, but I can see NASCAR's footprint getting bigger and bigger in 5 years for sure.
Finally, Joie Chitwood, growing up with the family, jumping through rings of fire in his early days. Does all of that prepare you for what you've been through and what you're going through now?
You know, I had the pleasure of being in a motorsports family with my grandfather being a race car driver at Indianapolis, starting an automobile stunt show. And for 5 months a year, we would tour the United States and we would play to the crowd, which was either fairgrounds or speedways, and we would sell tickets to our automobile stunt show. At the end of the day, no matter what we do, no matter what sport you're in, that fan has to be happy with what you give them. And so I understood early on it's about selling that ticket and giving our fans a great experience. That is no different if you run the Daytona 500 or if you run the short track down the street that you run a Friday night show on. And I think that's something that's really important for us, for our company. I think the France family knew that early on. It's about the fan. So the investments in the properties, coming up with more social opportunities, continuing to really generate great content. It's all about the fan. We want that fan to know that NASCAR, ISC, Daytona, we're in it for the long haul, and we understand what the fans need, which is a great experience.
And the thrills that Joie Chitwood provide on and off the track are legendary. Look forward to many, many years of success to come. Thank you very much, Joe.